Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Youngstown's Talk Channel. Joe and Kelin. How's everybody doing today? Are you doing okay?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
It's beautiful outside.
Yeah.
Kids went back to school today. I was like, bye-bye. Morning, BJ. Singing along. Why do you hate it so much when people are like chipper and happy and singing? You don't know why you hate it? Is it because you're dead inside? Is it because you're AI? Just got uncomfortable. Awkward.
All right.
This reminds me of a quick story.
All right.
I'll tell you a quick story.
Okay.
When I was little, my whole family knows this story, as my parents had some people over one night. Me and my brothers were in bed because we were little, and my grandparents, my dad's parents were over, and the adults were just downstairs hanging out. And I would sing at night. Like, my brother shared a room and I was by myself, and I think I was just bored and lonely and laying in bed and not sleeping yet. And I would start singing songs to myself out loud, and my brothers would yell, "Shut up!" And they'd yell downstairs, "Make her be quiet!" And so they would yell, "Kel, it's bedtime. It's time to be quiet now. Be quiet and go to sleep." And my grandmother would yell at my parents and say, "Your little girl is happy and singing, and you're telling her to be quiet." And so she said, "No, let her do that."
So it's not just me who thinks that.
My whole life I've been getting this. My whole life. Be quiet. Stop being so happy. Stop singing. I remember I had a job one time in the morning. A coworker said, "You're too happy." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Would you rather I be a bitch? I could come in here and just snap at everyone and have a scowl on my face. And would you feel better if I did
No,
that?"
I'd actually say, why are you such a bitch all the time?
Yeah.
You have to. There's a happy median between bitchiness and over happiness, and we want you right there in the middle where it's not too much and it's not too
like
little.
I come in here like with streamers and glitter and like
please
yelling all day.
Please don't do that.
All I do, I walk in, I smile, I say good morning.
All right, what do you want to talk about today? Your happiness is not primary.
All right, I got a couple things.
All right.
One quick one.
Sure.
Speaking of back to school, I saw a quote this morning. Kim Kardashian has come out and said,
The infinite wisdom of Kim Kardashian.
Right.
Let's go.
all knowing, she does not believe in homework.
Mhm.
She thinks kids are in school 8 hours a day. That's when they can do their work. Once they leave school, it's time for sports, activities, playing, family time, what have you. Leave the work at the school. How do you feel about that?
The way it's done now, I don't believe. Okay. Education should be an analog, right? And it should be an analog for what you're about to experience. And so if you're sitting in the room with an expert, then you learn through either lecture or demonstration about what they're talking about. And then you go out into the real world and do the thing that you just learned about, right? So the lecture and the education, that your teacher is supposed to be your expert. So it's not time to do the thing. It's supposed to be learn how to do the thing. And then you go home and demonstrate it in the real world. Like, how does this apply to the real world? So I think a lot of education is memorization. It's not actually teaching you something that you can go home and do something. So they find these creative ways to give you something that sort of resembles that, but is not that whatsoever. So if I taught you, we had a demonstration about the stock market, and I was teaching you about calls and puts and capitalization and EPS and all of that kind of stuff. Now you have all the information, you wrote it down. Now I'm going to say, what I want you to do is go home and I want you to pick your favorite company. And I want you to pretend to buy 100 shares of this company. And then tomorrow when you come in, I want you to share your reason and logic for picking that company. And then that would be a practical exercise of homework. You can't do that at school, right? Because then you'd be sacrificing the lecture and the teaching time for the demonstration part. That's your job to go pick your favorite stock. I'm not going to sit around and wait for you to hurry up and pick a stock, right? I want you to go home and spend as much time as you have, right, in putting real thought into it. That would be a good use of homework. Today's homework is just an extension, cuts into family time and whatever. So That would be my take.
Well, how about, I mean, like I could see my kids are in band and they're told, go home, practice your instrument. Because if you want to get better, practice,
Right.
you only have so much time
Right.
in the school day. So I could see this idea of the more you do it, the more it sticks with you, the better you get. I could see that translating into other subjects. I don't know though. Like, what about these projects where you have to make something and it takes several days? And I hate it because it's almost always involving the parents. They need help from the parents.
Well, and that's that the parents are supposed to do that. So like if my kid wanted to play baseball and they go to practice and they go to games, that's not going to be enough in order to mastery of playing baseball.
Right.
They also go in the backyard, pull dad, put the glove on and play baseball. Dad's not playing baseball or playing in a game, but they're necessary in the development of the kid's skill set. I think there are too many meaningless subjects that the kid is going there and serving their time. They're not really interested in learning about what they are. So it's hard for them to go home and practice the thing when they almost resent the fact that they're being taught it in the first place. So yeah, education needs an overhaul because none of this stuff makes sense. It's not valuable. And then you can't justify cutting into family time, right? Where you sit around and watch TV, right, as spending time together. I think parents should be more active in their kids' education for sure. Because I've added way more dimensions to my kids' learning than school ever could because I took the ball when he came home and we did the thing and talked about the thing and it dominates the conversations once he gets home.
Yeah.
So he gets 12 hours of education. Schooling, he probably doesn't like as much as dad time schooling where we actually do the stuff.
And it is interesting when you see them actually develop like a super big interest in what they're learning. Like my son got real into the movie Tombstone. You ever see Tombstone? Oh, yeah. And then the Wax Museum came around last year and he was Wyatt Earp. And now for Halloween, he wants to be Doc Holliday. And he knows all this stuff that he learns about like history. And I'm like, man, that's exciting when they like find something that is really fun to learn about for them and interesting. And then it's almost like, hey, I like this. Let's get more involved in something that's educational that you find joy in.
Yeah. Well, think if we did this. Most of family time is distracted time, right? We're not really together. So let's just say your kid goes and learns about the steel industry at school, and they get some historical facts about people and places and whatever. And then you take your kid on a weekend trip to go visit the places that they just learned about. You're going to instead of going to Disneyland where you hump some mice and eat overpriced food, you're taking them to a place where it's a continuation of their education. Yeah. That's a parent that would take the education serious. Again, transaction, like when parents say it cuts into my family time. Okay, well, I'm going to follow you around during family time and see what you're really adding to the development of the kid, the relationship of the kid. You guys are just sitting around being lazy, doing unhealthy things, and doing what's detrimental to education.
How do you feel about, did you ever, when you were younger, have to do the class where you have like an egg or a flower or a baby doll and you had to watch a baby? I don't think I ever did that. I think they might have done away with that when I got into high school. But how do you feel about things like that?
I love it. It anything that snaps the frame of reference to a kid, puts them in a situation where they can experience like a portion of a lesson and making it more real than just what's on a piece of paper. I love it.
I pointed it out at the fair, and not to be a jerk to this couple, but I saw it as a teaching moment. We're standing at the stand and my husband was getting something to eat and we're all kind of hot and tired and just sort of in that mindset. And then you see this young couple with just this wailing baby and they're trying to deal with the baby and the mom's giving it the sniff test. And I think it needs changed. And now we have to find somewhere we can change this diaper. And I was like, does that look fun? When you love to be doing that right now in the heat and walking around and now your child is screaming and where are you going to change its diaper? And I was like, remember that when you're older, and you're thinking about what you start thinking about, remember that. And so I thought, maybe we should bring back the whole like home ec where you
every experience that a kid will experience in adulthood, they should have small samples of it when they're kids. Everything from financial to confrontation to things like having a kid and investing, everything. You should create as a parent an analog for all of that stuff.
It is interesting. I remember when my daughter was very little, we were at a drugstore and there was some nail polish she wanted to buy. And I said, okay, you can have this nail polish. She was just starting to wear nail polish and she wanted to do it herself. And so I handed her some money and she walked up to the counter and they're like, oh, what do you have there? You know, and she learned this transaction. Well, now she has her own debit card. She earns money. She helps our neighbors' dogs and dog sits and stuff. Money goes on her card. And then when we go somewhere, she's like, hey, I really want this. And I'm like, how bad do you want it? It's your own money that you worked for. And she's like, yeah, I want to use my money towards this. And she will go up and she uses her card and she sees how the money goes. And I was like, this is a good idea, I think, for kids. You know, and she used to say things like, I can't wait till I get older. I have a full-time job and I can buy all these things. And I said, you won't. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, you won't be buying all these things. You got bills to pay. You got a car to pay for. You got to get gas. You got to eat. I was like, do you have any idea how much of your paycheck will be left for this stuff? And she's like, oh, but starting to get a taste of that.
Yeah. I mean, just think about like anything that you do that's new, you're bad at for a long period of time. I would rather my kid be bad at something when they're young, when it doesn't matter, than get into adulthood and start figuring it out when they have a chance of wrecking things. So it's super important. And, you know, I listen to teachers complain about how disinvolved parents are in everything. And that's one thing that culturally we got to tackle. We got to fix the education system because teachers unions and Department of Education, they all ruined it. They created a charity event out of something that should be making brilliant people to put out into society that can add value to everything we do. And then parents, they pop out these kids and don't have a faintest clue that they just created an investment in that person is going to be contributing. And if you create a little shithead, right, all of us are going to be taking care of your shithead later. And that's not my responsibility.
Oh, yeah. So speaking of fair, saw a couple other things. One, I did see a guy walking around with a t-shirt, made me think of you. It said, when I lie to the government, it's a felony. When the government lies to us, it's politics.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, yeah, that's true.
See, that's why you shouldn't be so happy in the mornings, right? What I do before going into the show is I read all the headlines. I get cynical and I hate everybody, right? So you come in here happy. I'm like, she must not have read the headlines.
Well, I got that way at the Canfield Fair. I got cynical, like from the smallest little thing of why do people have to walk so slow? Like there's thousands of people. Why do you think you're just going to stay right in the lane and...
Oh, you mean blithering in consideration?
Yes.
They don't even know it. They don't even know how much in the way they freaking are.
Yeah. Like, can you move? Like, anytime there's something I actually want to look at, I get out of the main walkway and do my looking. You don't just stop and, oh, what's that? I'm like, freaking move.
Do you think it's women more than men? Because I have this theory on it. It's not going to make women happy, but I have a theory.
I don't know. Probably. It could be, actually. Because they're the ones kind of looking and thinking and seeing things. And I think men just don't care. I'm just here. Yeah. Walking around.
Yeah. And I don't think women as a species has...
What just happened?
Yeah, I hit a button. Women as a species haven't been in society enough to get pushed around enough to figure it out that you have to be considerate with other people. Think about the women were on the pedestal where they were taken care of and they were protected and they were saved from things that they needed exposure to. And so their center of attention. They're not worried about like where they're in other people's way. That's like a guy's job, is to like sacrifice themselves for the benefit of other people. Women were central. So when they're in there and they're in the supermarket.
Oh yes. Back in the good old days.
In the supermarket, I see Betty Sue, right? I haven't seen Betty Sue in forever. So I'm going to pull my card up here and Betty Sue's is right here.
Oh God.
It's about the conversation with Betty Sue. Me waiting to just go that way, right, isn't a consideration, isn't even a notice. And even like, excuse me, it's like little bit of movement, just let me pass by. Not the realization that they're in my effing way and they need to pull off to the side of the road and go to some place where they're not impeding everybody else's movement around that stupid grocery store. There's some real trauma in this story. Can you feel it?
Does this happen to you?
Oh,
often?
lots of time. But then you look at the psychology. Why would you have behaviors like that? Why wouldn't you know that you're not supposed to be in other ways unless you've had a long history of being in the way and other people making sure that nobody inconvenienced you in the conversation that you wanted to have?
Well, and do you think it could maybe even go back to the time where men were at work all day, the women were out running these errands, and so it was just all of them, and that kind of was
and they
their
didn't
social
care.
time,
They weren't in each other's way.
Places.
If you saw a gaggle in the middle of an aisle,
yeah, they were
you
like,
joined the
"Hey,
conversation.
girls,
Exactly.
this is your outing.
Right.
This is what you do."
Women do have different priorities because we have it ingrained from a generation before them. And they haven't quite figured out that the repercussions of always being in the way is, women are more agreeable, right?
Yeah.
But you also have to have participation with other people. And if you're just a narcissist who doesn't care about getting people, nobody's going to want to play with you.
Well, I mean, you said parents can't let their kids grow up to be shitheads. It's what you teach them. Did the men not then do this? If this is actually a real theory, did the men not make this?
What do you mean make this?
Like, the men that allowed for this dynamic to happen, and you said we put them on a pedestal, we protected them.
But that was when the woman was in the home. That was a valued proposition to protect your nester, right? The person that was going to provide in that. They took priority because they were doing all the important things. They made the household run. But once you throw them out into society, it's not your roost anymore. You do not have domain over the environment. You've got to let other people participate. You can't get in their way. And nobody taught them that their behaviors were going to have to change. It's ingrained in them psychologically and biologically. And now they operate outside the household like they did inside the household. But still, men are like kind of just tolerate it and kind of put up with it as to not be mean to them, when what should happen when they're in the middle and say they should be told that they need to go somewhere else and not be in everybody else's way. And that might be hard to hear for them, but it's a truthful statement.
I always liked the fact that when my husband was in the military and he would deploy, they would have briefings and the wives or the spouses would have briefs and debriefs when they were coming home. And he would tell me one of the things that they were debriefed on when they're ready to start coming home is understand your wives have been handling everything for months.
Yep.
They have a system, they have a routine, they have a way it works for them. Do not insert yourself and start changing anything. You assimilate to them,
Amen.
Not the other way around.
Right.
And I appreciated that. And they knew it. They said, all right, you've been holding down the fort. This is your realm. Tell me what you need me to do. Not, hey, I'm home now. Now it's going to be this way.
It's a meritocracy. Whoever is the better driver drives. And that's metaphor. Right?
That's
what?
A metaphor.
It's a metaphor.
I figured because you were going to say, because we know women can't drive or something, even though I think we can. But anywho, Julie,
good.
I would say Jerry says, I have been irritated for years that at malls it should be traffic on one side goes one way and the other side the other way, and use the center for cut crosses. It is so simple.
That logic there. And so think about it. The nature of women is not efficiency, right? It is not logistics.
Sometimes
okay?
Depends on what they're doing.
Oh, let me finish. Let me finish. It is not about okay. So if you were to take a grocery store and take all of the elements that makes it a well-functioning grocery store, and you're going to take all the things that make a grocery store terrible, right? Mm-hmm. There would be things on the terrible list that you would not want to participate in. You want to make sure you're not a contributing factor. Women are more cautious, right? They put a priority on relations. Like at a grocery store, relations really isn't part of what a grocery store's function is. What is the function of it? Going in, spending the least amount of time, getting what you need, getting to the register, and leaving, right? And so like when I go up to the register, I have everything I need in my hands, right? And I have a quick load, put it back into my little lanyard when it goes. I want to spend as little time at that register as possible. So you're at the register. What's going to take a long time? How about waiting to the last minute to dig out your checkbook and your pen and your coupons out of your purse?
God, yeah.
That would make an inefficient checkout. So if you, as the receiving part of it, right? You want to be given enough time to do what you have to do. When you're behind that person, you want that person to have been a little bit more prepared for the moment that they could have actually foreseen. So if they weren't thinking about checking out, what were they thinking about? They were probably reading the magazines and find out what, their favorite celebrities doing. Hey, how the cashier,
They're probably on their phone.
The cashier, hey, how's everything going? How's Bob? Right.
Yeah.
And so where the logic of efficiency enters in there is about 9th or 10th down on the list. So here's the deal. Know what you need, make a list of what you got, which they probably nailed that because they're the ones that are going to suffer if they don't make the list.
Mm-hmm.
Plot out and know your grocery store where things are and hit the aisles that you need. Don't go down every aisle. Just go down the ones that you intended to go down. You don't have conversations. Leave conversations to social time, right?
Yeah.
Not in the middle of the grocery store. Have everything out of your purse while you're waiting to get there so that you're ready to go. And if you have to load things back in your purse, push the buggy way up and do that on the bench. The little put shit back in your purse bench, that's for you, not for while I'm waiting. And don't engage in conversations after you're finished. There's somebody waiting behind you. This
has me thinking like the airport, like airport security, where I'm just want to scream, can we keep it moving?
Yes.
Like, let's go, get your shit, go all the way over there and put it all back on. Like,
yeah. So if you were to take maybe some retired people who are efficiency experts and they're waiting next to the buggies, if you know you can't handle logistics or consideration or efficiency, let a mentor follow you around and teach you things, how to not be a blight on what that, supermarket presents to the community.
Yeah.
If I can't get, on purpose, right, don't go to places when I know there's a bunch of overcautious old women going, because I know it's going to take me 100 times longer to get through that grocery store if I have to wait on somebody who's not at all concerned.
Like I would imagine if you go to the grocery store, maybe late morning on a weekday, better expect some retirees that are there for social hour.
Yes.
Now, maybe after 5 or on the weekend, those are people trying to get stuff done.
Exactly.
They got to be
in
somewhere.
And freaking out. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like have those set times. Same with mall walkers. Like there are people who are just there to walk the mall during certain times. Maybe don't go if it's going to be like peak shopping season.
But you need to have an incentive where there's a penalty for being inconsiderate or slow or having a lack of logic when doing something. It's got to cost you more so that somebody doesn't take their time. There's a reason not to take their time. So for instance, when you're driving around, right? You have different driving profiles, people that are going way under the speed limit and oblivious to traffic laws. You have people that are, going the speed limit. You have people who are really trying to get somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. Who should take priority in that? Should it be the slow drivers that you tolerate? Should it be the people who are just following the rule? Or should you give way to someone that obviously has somewhere to be?
I think you should give way to someone who has somewhere to be, but they also need to be safe about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can be safe. You can be safe in a rush.
You can't just drive like a bat out of hell.
The slow drivers pose a greater risk on the roadways than fast drivers. You increase the fatality rate on yourself and other people. But as far as sheer numbers, which poses the biggest danger on the highways, it's differentials between slow and fast. Have you ever come up on somebody that's going 20 miles under the speed limit? That's dangerous because cars pile up behind them. They're in the left lane, probably their blinker. They're barely seeing over with their 10 and 2 things, blue hair out the back window. Sorry, old people, picking on you on today's show, but it's just the truth.
And I think just as bad now as the old people are the people looking down at their phones.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem. Definitely a problem.
You know how often I see someone cross left to center and come right at me doing this?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to pull them out of their car.
I am really surprised that there are not more accidents. And maybe there are, and we just don't know them. But yeah, I would prefer if more people, I would prefer if they improve the technology. Like in my Jeep, my phone doesn't work when I'm on CarPlay, right? When I'm trying to type things in, it will say, while you're in drive, this can't happen on the screen. So it keeps people from dabbling, or at least letting the co-pilot, do some of the actions. There should be more stopgaps to get in the way of that.
If I'm driving and someone calls me, it'll come through the car. If they text me, I won't know. I won't hear it. it won't notify you that there's a text. Some cars will, mine won't. And I also have God, it scared the crap out of me this morning. If I turn my turn signal on and I'm like driving down the highway or somewhere and there's a car in my blind spot, my car will beep and the steering wheel will vibrate. And there's a side camera and it'll be like, beep, 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 like, don't go yet.
Yeah.
And
that's protecting a lot of
me.
people from that distracted driving for sure.
Yeah. Or where you're just about to cut over and you can't yet, but you didn't see someone.
Anyway, so moral of the story is parents got to get more involved in, what the kids are learning and supplement that. Teaching and the innovations in education need to go off the charts. We're just managing dumb people rather than creating exceptional people. And inconsiderate people need to be taught and shamed and lectured on behaviors that should not be acceptable in the freaking grocery store and other places too.
My husband and I actually recently, we've been having some discussions about helping people and the idea that we like to help others. We like to serve others when we can, especially if someone is going through something and they're trying and they just need a little extra help. We're there to help. But we've started to put up major boundaries when we realize it's no longer just help. You're just having us do everything. Like you didn't do something because we'll do it. Like you didn't make the right decision because we're your backup plan. And it's getting to now where it's like, we've really got to watch that. It's additional help, not just doing things for you all the time.
So, and I blame government for this and the secularists for doing this. I think charity is such an important part of the human condition that you should personally both feel it when you do it and really appreciate when it's done for you. It should be so rare, right? That it even has to. But the government, what they did was they kicked the church out of it, where the church was, famous for helping people with the intention of, sort of like changing the hearts and minds of people, kick religion out of it. So now it's this government that says, I'm going to be the all-knowing charity, right? All-doing charity. And how many thank you letters do you think SNAP gets? And when you get your check, you're like, oh, this government, it's so nice to me. Thank you so much for appreciate, right?
Yeah.
How many letters of appreciation do you think charitable social programs get from the recipients of those programs?
Probably not many.
How many of them feel like paying it forward with how great the system was for them and how much they want to do that for somebody else? So it doesn't lay a foundation of people even knowing what charity is. It transactionalized it, depersonalized it, right? And now it's just entitlement.
Yeah, right? I was gonna say it created an entitlement. Like, hey, where's my check? Where's my benefit? Where's my whatever? And it's like, I feel like you're no longer trying to get away from that. I feel like that's just your new norm. This is how I survive off these different benefits.
And then the victim entitlement industry basically conditioned people, or envy, not entitlement. So the victim envy group, right? They were told that the reason they don't have is because of Bob over there. He has too much. So like, even if Bob came to you and gave you some money, you wouldn't be like, oh, dude, thank you so much. You took a sacrifice. They would say, yeah, it's about freaking time that you came off your money. Why didn't you do that sooner? Like, we need to take, how about double next time because you can afford it? And so like we sabotaged what charity equals. So there's going to be generations down the road that hold a door for someone. Do they say thank you? No, they're just entitled little bitches who think that it's their right. How dare you even deprive them of what they feel that was coming to them anyway?
Yeah. Like I hate, especially in like a traffic jam situation, when you let someone go. If someone lets me out or merge or in or whatever, like I will say thank you until I know they saw me. Like if they're looking away and I waved, but they didn't see it, I'll wave again. Like, thank you so much. And I hate if I let someone go, especially knowing there have been times where I know everyone behind me is going to get mad that I did that because they're trying to go. And I'm like, look, it's going to cost us 5 more seconds, but these people won't be stuck anymore. I'm going to let them go. And I don't even get a wave or an acknowledgement or nothing. God, I want to be like, get back, go back and be stuck. You don't even appreciate what I just did and the risk I put myself in.
Yeah.
with the angry people behind
and
me.
that's why, again, Cynical Joe is charity is dead, because we're not using it as a tool to change people, to change their hearts and minds. We are just transactionalizing it, and it's not appreciated. So how many times are you going to help people if not only do you get no acknowledgement for doing it, you know that you didn't change any behavior, and you just basically took someone and taught them to be in a position where they need charity again because somebody's going to come through.
Yes. And there's these people in our lives currently. And again, and I don't even need the thanks. Like if you were in a pinch and you say, can you help me real quick and do this or help me with this? Sure. No thanks needed. I got you. But when I see you make decisions with me as your backup, oh, I can go ahead and do this. It normally wouldn't make sense for me to do this, but I got someone that'll fill that in for me or take care of that for me. No, no, I'm not your backup. I am not your go-to. I am not like your rule of thumb. Like I am in case of emergency, not I'm doing this for you now forever. And that's your daily game plan.
You just profiled it perfectly. That is where we live now, where charity is not appreciated. It's almost an expected thing, especially if you have more than you need, Kelin. Like you can come off that shit because it's just a matter of time, right? Before there's somebody, if we let us take stabs at billionaires, right? And think that we're justified and noble, that we think we should steal from somebody else just because they have more than us, just a matter of time before that cascades down to you. And like what somebody takes aim at you and say, well, Kelin, look at her. She bought a luxury item and I had to have grilled cheese yesterday. Kelin, I deserve this.
Oh, we were just talking over the weekend about the idea of people who win the lottery. And my dad had said, can you imagine how your life would be ruined if you won this 1 point whatever billion dollar jackpot? And my kids are like, what do you mean your life would be ruined? And I was like, think of all the people that come out of the word work, all the people that think now you owe something to somebody.
Yep.
You know, like, well, you have it, you should do this. Well, you have it, you should do this. And I hate that mindset. And I see that even with people who aren't lottery winners. I remember people like seeing someone in a nice car and they'll think, oh, well, they can afford this. I'll just do this. They can afford it. And I'll be like, how do you know that's not borrowed? How do you know that's not someone that doesn't have a vehicle and a really nice neighbor said, go ahead and take my Mercedes today or take my BMW, take my whatever and borrow it for the day. Like you have no idea what that situation is. How do you know it wasn't gifted to them for some reason? Like I hate when people say, well, you have this, so this must mean whatever. And I'm like, ooh, I don't like that.
Yeah. Not a good principle at all.
Yeah.
Class hatred.
And it makes me even feel self-conscious. Like we talked before about purses and designer things. Like if I save up my money and I buy a designer purse that's maybe a little more than just any everyday purse, I almost feel uncomfortable walking around with it because I feel like someone is going to perceive something about me. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, you must be this, so you can whatever. And it's like, you have no idea what it took to get that. You have no idea how I've cared for this. And I've had it for years because I saved up and I treated it right. And I made good decisions. And this was my one treat. And any other time I couldn't afford something like this. But I feel like people are going to look at me some kind of way. And it's like, oh, that's a shame. It's a shame that we do that to people.
It's only going to get worse. So we are preaching the deadly sins rather than the virtues. Virtues are freaking hard, right? But if you have everyone in your culture and civilization watching you pursue every deadly sin and then basically saying, it's all right, you got to express yourself. It's who you are. No, sins are easy. Like they are the default. And so the secularists who think that people are just going to find virtues on their own. Yeah. Okay. So take a 10-year-old and put 10 hard things and 10 easy things. Watch which ones they consume.
Yeah.
And watch how justified they feel about making those decisions. That's everybody. Everybody is on the pursuit of catastrophic, sacrifices of the principles and who you should try to be as a person every day.
I even saw, speaking of political statements at the fair, I believe it was the Democratic Party's tent. at the Canfield Fair had a sign hung up that said, "It's not left and right, it's right and wrong." And I just went, I'm just going to walk away. I'm just going to walk away. It's that thinking, I think, that people, again, put no consideration into anything that they don't agree with, that they don't know about, that they like. The problem isn't right and wrong. The problem is everybody thinks they're right, or everybody has a different way of viewing it. And it's that polarizing mindset, which is why you all lost in the first place.
If it was the Democrat tent, that is the biggest self-own that I've ever seen, because you have Republicans right,
yeah,
and liberals
I
left.
thought that too.
And
I thought that
did
too.
you just say you're
Did
wrong?
You just... Well, I think they probably worded it
Self-own.
left and right and wrong.
Self-own.
But yeah.
Self-own.
Yeah.
Like that.
I was like, there's so many things I want to be like, you might want to take that sign down.
Yeah, that was terrible.
That was
all right. So
dumb.
this is something that is I want to get your take on this.
Okay.
So we put a bunch of destroyers, some military ships down in South America, right? Venezuela, we have Maduro, who's responsible for a ton of drugs that come into the United States. Trump declared them as a terrorist group because so many Americans die from drug overdoses and just what the scourge of all of our big, our cities and what drugs are doing to them. I can't say big cities anymore because it's basically everywhere now. But anyway, we declared basically war on drugs, like a real war, not like Reagan and Nancy Reagan goes on TV and talks about drugs. I think that's what she
the
did,
war
right?
against drugs.
Yeah, but this is a real war. So yesterday, Trump released a video of a small 3-engine boat skimming across the top of the ocean with 11 people that were on it. And you have the Desert Storm HUD from an aircraft, right? You remember those where they used to take out battle tanks and they show the missile hitting the tank? You don't remember those?
I might know what you mean.
All right.
See it,
Anyway.
Okay.
So here's this boat skimming across. Your drone's obviously getting it. And then you see an explosion and they just take out the boat with a Tomahawk missile, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that's a little bit of an overreaction because we expect that if you're transporting drugs to the United States, you're on a boat, the Coast Guard pulls up alongside you, they arrest you, they take possession, you're in jail, right? That would be the normal way. Military's like, nope, you're just going away, right?
Wow.
And so, and I watched kind of the debate happening, whether or not this was a little too much and a little too drastic. But I'm thinking like the next day when you're like, okay, guys, we need a volunteer for running the drugs. Like, Bob just got, he just got vaporized by a Tomahawk missile. I'd like shore duty this week, right?
I don't want to be the mule anymore.
Right. So an example's sake. Now, if you believe in, the conspiracy theories, what if there were no human beings on that? What if we put a boat out there, we put it under remote control, we blew it up as an example of what happens to you if you start running drugs, and maybe you'll second guess using.
Like, here's what's going to happen to you if you even try it.
So, but even if I'm not a real big fan of loss of life, even with criminals, even if they've done terrible things, like I try something before. If somebody's not wielding a gun, threatening someone else's life in the moment, like taking their life is a rough ask as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you don't.
Now
this
one is like you have to really go out dimensional branches in order to say, well, they contributed to a lot of deaths, so taking them out is going to be a net gain for preserving life. Yeah, but that's a reach. So how do you feel about it?
I mean, they contributed to a lot of deaths that the person voluntarily participated in. They didn't come in blasting people. They sold you something. You knew it was dangerous. You knew it was illegal. You took it anyways and died. So again, are we being a bit extreme here? Probably. I do kind of like the idea of maybe there wasn't anyone on there. Maybe this was for show. I could definitely see that happening.
Mhm.
That would be an enormous waste of money.
Tomahawks are not cheap,
Yeah.
right? So like if you're sending a $20 million rocket and blasting a boat and you're thinking the Coast Guard could have done it for $20,000 and then had
Yeah. Not only did you blow up money, you put that in the ocean, which is now polluted.
Yeah.
And
So it was definitely
now, if it worked, though, could it have saved you money? If it worked, like,
and that's why I say you really have to go out dimensions to be able to justify that. And I just hope that, you know, this was just a single example to disrupt. So in South America, the drug trade owns the governments, and this is Mexico included. There are a lot of government officials and judges and police officers that are owned by cartel money. So it's not like you can take traditional route of law enforcement and rid yourself of it. So once they went up to you're a terrorist organization, then it's now impervious to law enforcement. Somebody from the outside has to intervene without including the corrupted that are within those countries. Okay, so it's almost like, well, if not this, then what? I mean, if you're not, like, let's just say they stopped boat transport, it would just be another method of transport. It's not like they're going to stop doing, you know, importing drugs to the United States. They're just going to pick a different method.
Yeah, they'll probably just get craftier. They're going to change. Maybe they'll do it more with civilians involved, so that if you do,
you can't take them out like that, whatever. So that's why I feel like there's a big emphasis on making an example to show how serious you are about taking you out. Like if tomorrow you read that we took bombers over South America and we took all of the drug plantations that were in those areas and just carpet bombed them and just destroyed them, how would you feel about that? Knowing that, yes, the cartels now are at a disadvantage. Yes, that probably the dealers were part of those compounds, but there were probably locals there that were doing the farming that weren't necessarily part of the drug trade. They were just participating. So then you make that same justification. Now that's a warning to regular people. Don't go work those farms because you might get carpet bombed.
Yeah, that would be sad though. You know, I don't like when civilians are
if you're
involved.
in South America and there are no other industries except for the drug trade and you're part of that, are you a guilty participant when there are no other options? So that's why delicate balance.
Very delicate. Speaking of extreme measures and loss of life, did you hear about the kid that was shot in Texas?
No.
You didn't hear about the ding dong ditch?
Yes.
Yeah. So apparently this town in Texas, I guess this wasn't an isolated incident, which is why, you know, temperatures were so high, so to speak. Apparently this group of kids had been aggressively ding dong ditching, as in banging on the doors, kicking, doing this, being a nuisance for some time. Well, apparently they did it at the wrong house. And as they're running away, the owner of the house had a gun ready, chased them, and shot one and killed one.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about this?
The same logic on your drug thing. You participated in something where you take the responsibility that if you misbehave, you risk getting shot. And so if you're going to make anything out of it, start circulating, right? The things that you don't need to do, like destruction of property and robbing, vandalizing,
being a
nuisance, like it could result in that. So you got to take that as an equal participant in that. Now, do I think the homeowner overreacted, chasing someone down and shooting them? Oh yeah, like that.
Yes.
That
was extreme.
Again, if you're just defending life, if someone breaks in your door and is threatening you or taking your stuff or whatever, and they've shown that they've, you know, pierced a barrier that you don't want them in your house, and you get, I feel no sympathy for the victim.
Because some people said, well, the way they were doing it, I could absolutely see somebody thought a break-in was occurring. But this guy, one, had to have been ready, because who gets a gun that fast? And two, saw them fleeing. There was nobody coming in. He left his home and shot this person. So I don't think he thought it was a break-in.
And being that you mentioned it was in Texas, I think, you know, more of the Wild West don't F with people has been sort of like a cultural acceptance in that. I would expect that if I walked on a farm in Pennsylvania, someone would like lecture me that I'm not supposed to be on their property. If I go to a farm in Texas, there's a rancher that has sights on me and will blast me. And if I know that going into it, I don't do that because I know how much leeway they have with defending your property.
Yeah. Because we have done some dumb things that probably anywhere else would get us killed.
Yeah.
And just because like my husband likes to play Army still, and we've gone to his buddy's house out in New Springfield, like literally dressed in camo in the dark to screw with them in their house. And I asked him, I was like, does he own a gun? Like, could we be doing something really stupid here? And he's like, I'm telling you, it's 100% safe and he's going to know it's us and blah, blah, blah. But imagine if it wasn't out where no one else sees us. What if this was a neighborhood? What if somebody thought we were dangerous people? Like we were 100% being creepy. In hindsight, I was like, man, that could have been a real bad idea had it been done anywhere else.
Well, again, the blame is going to be if we make our cities safe and have real law and order, then we're cool because we don't have to take our own actions. We don't get prepared with a gun in our doorway ready to go. So if your governments were any good at keeping things safe, but they almost supplement violence and they almost encourage violence in the cities. And again, the secular angle on things, people will just, beatings on subways and robbing of stores. Like if you watch the news for 20 minutes and know what are in the hearts of people, when it is a rarity for someone to do something violent in your town, then you don't get prepared for anything. When it happens all the time and you're inundated with people victimizing you, you get to a point where you're just fed up with it and says, if the government's not going to protect me and law enforcement isn't going to protect me, I'm going to protect me. And here's the deal. If you don't want to get shot, stay the F off my property. If you come here, you are inviting whatever happens to you. And that's really when a civilian doesn't trust in the infrastructure that's supposed to protect them and their rights, they'll take it in their own hands, and people don't make good decisions that way.
In my first house, when we were down south, I got a phone call one night from our next door neighbor, and I was already in bed. It was at night. Husband was gone. I think I had babies at the time. And it was a neighbor that I was friendly with, but would not be calling me at like 11 something at night. And so I answered it, and she's like, hey, my daughter just got home and said that there's a bunch of people like around your house. We were the first house in the neighborhood. There were fences. You probably couldn't see people in my backyard from the road. And I was like, oh, what? And she said there was like a bunch of young people all around your house when she pulled in. And I was like, that's not cool. So I called 911 and I said, explained what happened. My neighbor's saying there's a bunch of people. I am here alone with my babies, blah, blah, blah. Like, can you send someone? Especially because this neighborhood, like there had been break-ins before. It was becoming a not great part of town, which is why we moved out of it. An hour goes by and nothing. No drive-by, no police officer, no nothing. I called again and I said, I've been waiting for someone to come by and do a drive-by and come look. And they're like, oh, yeah, I didn't send anyone. Like it wasn't enough of an emergency for this dispatcher. And I went, okay, so when someone gets shot, is that when you send someone then? Like, do I go outside now and defend myself and then we work it out later with the police? Could you just have someone drive by? I was so angry. I was so mad. I was like, this is why. This is why people take matters into their own hands.
For sure. And if there weren't so much violent crime and the cops weren't paying attention to things that should rarely occur, then they'd have time to respond to my cat stuck in the tree thing and make that was a good big day, right?
Yeah.
And then they could have paid attention. But since we've overwhelmed them with creating so many bad people and encouraged bad behaviors and then taken the disciplines and consequences away, that's all you get, a lot of misbehaving people. So I will move as far away from people as I can. So here's the logic that I follow. If there were a zombie apocalypse, right, and you get breakdown completely, right?
Yeah.
There's no services that are coming to your rescue. You're freaking on your own, right?
Yeah.
How do you think the place where you live would behave once there were no consequences, no law enforcement and whatever? What would they do? Now, if you live in a neighborhood, you're like, oh, I know everybody in this neighborhood. I know what their tendencies are. We'd rally together. We'd come together. Nope, there's not a threat in my neighborhood. Now you live in the right place. If you look suspiciously and say, oh, there's some people I don't know, they're a little bit on the fringe, right? This is when you need to act and make sure that you protect yourself against that, because it's just a matter of time before a circumstance happens where the behaviors that you know are very likely to happen, right? And then there's nobody to call to come. So you got to be self-sufficient and be able to protect yourself, because culture is producing a lot of very terrible people.
Not only terrible people, I think dumb people.
Dumb, terrible people.
Like, what would you say you have to protect yourself more from? Nefarious, evildoers, or just idiots that are dangerous because they're idiots, because they don't think properly.
The difference is the dumb people bounce off of you. So just staying away from people altogether almost keeps you away from the dumb ones, because there's no logic in how they disturb and destroy things. But the nefarious people, the ones that freaking target you, right? There's some smarts that go into it, where they picked you and your circumstance and the packages on your porch, or the big screen TV that they think you have, and the car that has things involved in it. There's some, you were targeted. So there's less, like, I don't want those people to be encouraged, because, you know, like if you have a gang of kids that go around neighborhoods and they can't seem to find them, and they're breaking into cars, stealing stuff, right? It's just a matter of time before your neighborhood is one of them. But if somebody does it and the cops catch them and they get life in prison, maybe executed with lion scratches, whatever, then the behavior has been dissuaded from happening in the first place, and you're not like rewarding that kind of behavior. So it's easier to defend against dumb people unless they're a majority. And we will get,
but there might be more of them.
Yes. We want dumb people to be the minority, right?
Yeah.
And we want to move them in their own dumb camps to keep them away from the rest of civilization, or we all pay those consequences.
Yeah, because I mean, there have been people that, like, I'll warn my kids, stay away from them. They're not a bad person.
They're just dumb.
They're dumb. They do dumb things. They make bad decisions. I could easily see you being in harm's way just because you were around this idiot, and you're the one who gets hurt, I bet.
So we're gonna buy a plot of land, and we're gonna fence it off so nobody can get in. We're gonna put thick brush, huge trees around the perimeter. We're gonna live in the center of it, right? And we're gonna live like it's like the 1940s, village. Right? Yeah. We're gonna make sure that no air traffic. We're gonna raise generations to not even know that there is an outside world. And then
the village. M. Night Shyamalan.
Why are you spoiling it?
Sorry, I thought that was given.
Do you want an invite?
Can I have an invite when things get bad, or do you have to go?
Oh no! Like, we put a dome over it when things get bad. So there's just now we have to figure out how to do it well, where we have access to outside things that we might get wrong or not be good at or whatever. And then once we cut the cable on outside civilization, it's it.
So you got to bank that outside civilization is going to tank.
It is. It's inevitable.
All right, I'm in.
You're in?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we're all just going to, like, keep each other safe, let the idiots die off. Mm-hmm. And then what do? We
just live our lives generation after generation in complete ignorant bliss that there is an outside world that's evil, demonic, and terrible.
Until the outside world kills itself off, and then we repopulate doing it the right way, like a reset button.
Yep.
What would that look like, doing things the right way?
Principles where everyone's pursuing. I mean, you basically just reinvent civilization with Christianity, right? And the teachings of the Bible, and keep it small enough where you don't let it corrupt like everything else corrupts. And then you read Utopia, and you take all of the failings of Utopia of how it doesn't work and keep it within the confines of where Utopia is possible.
Everybody has to watch Idiocracy to learn from it.
We don't have TVs. I am not
all right,
introducing
tell the story of Idiocracy.
Yeah. And written by the people who live there, not outside people who we don't even know. So it'll be complete contained ecosystem.
The outsiders.
Mm-hmm. keep those outsiders at bay.
Speaking of, this is shifting topics a little bit. You had talked about the Bible and teachings and things of that nature. This might go kind of into left field a bit.
Good. I like that.
Have you ever had a moment? I feel like we've talked about this before. We probably have, but it's been a little while, so we can revisit. Have you ever had a moment that was so meaningful and coincidental that you were like, no way that wasn't orchestrated? No way that wasn't. And I'm not talking about a big something happened. I mean, a realization, a moment, something you heard at the time you heard it that corresponded with something. And you're like, no way that was chance. There's no way. And I'm emphasizing the idea of a creator, a God, another universe, what have you. Something is pulling the strings here. Could it have just been chance? Absolutely. But have you ever had one that you just went,
all the time?
Yeah.
And I think that for not a majority of the population to experience those moments, because faith is hard. It's one of those things where it's a developed thing, and it's not sort of like a delusion. Like I'm an active cynic no matter where I'm at. So I try to pick through and have explanations of what things really are. And I'm a harsh judge of that evidence. And I've had so many of those things that were so unlikely to occur. And so going back to like what the Bible is, what the Bible isn't, what Christianity is and what it isn't. This is my opinion only. So those of you who are actually study this stuff and have your own beliefs, my opinion is not there to dissuade you from pursuing your beliefs. Everybody got their own path. Mine should not affect you whatsoever.
Yeah, this is just an open mind environment.
So the Bible equals wisdom, right? These are things where people who were more connected to their faith and got information beyond like the physical world here shared that information with other people. And when the other people grab this information, they figure out how to apply it to their own life. And so like when we're looking out into the cosmos and we're getting information, like there's very rarely that we know what to do with the information. We just know that we see something and we try to make scientific sense of it, right? And so if you got information beyond, like, okay, your beings going to pursue something, and you're going to know your biology is going to push you, and you want to know why your biology wants to push you. Here's something that makes no sense whatsoever, and you should pursue this, and you don't really even know the meaning of it. You don't know how it's even relevant, but my faith is going to push me into doing something I never would have done if I didn't know what the end goal was. And then you watch this traversing into these unlikely territories that you would have never made, and it works out in some, supernatural way, leads to something else that wouldn't have happened. You're like, oh, holy shit, I would have never chose that, but I had faith in it and I pursued it and I went there and it worked out and whatever. That's supposed to then sort of like give fertilizer to your faithful thoughts to do things that don't make sense, be given information that you never would have had access to if you didn't do X, Y, or Z. And it is the funnest part of connecting to spirituality, is when you do make those pursuits and you get a green check mark next to the fruit of those choices.
Yeah. Mine is often, I will just, and I recently had this happen the other day to where I literally I said time out and I paused it and I just had to sit with it a minute. Like I will think of something in my alone time. I always say I do my best thinking when I'm getting ready to go somewhere, because I am alone in my bathroom, probably for hours, doing hair and makeup and getting dressed, doing things I do on a regular basis. So very little thought has to go into it. I'm like on autopilot. And so I just think. And these thoughts and these ideas will come to me. And sometimes I've been into like Christian praise and worship music a lot lately. So I often have that playing as I just thinking. And I'll get this like, what I will feel is like this amazing idea. Oh my God, we could do this. And it could become this, and oh my God, then other people could join in, and it could be this movement and this thing, and oh, this is such a great idea, and it follows the teaching of Jesus, and it does this, and it would make so many people happy, and it's such a great thought, and I just kind of spiral in this fun idea, And then I turn the music off. I put my stuff away. I finish getting ready and I leave for my day and it dies. But then I'll be somewhere or I'll be on an internet rabbit hole, doom scroll kind of thing. And a video will get served to me that will talk about what I was just thinking about. It'll be so confirming that I could be like, could I be loosely tying this in? Sure. Obviously, I get served videos that feed my interest because of algorithms. So could I have been naturally thinking about something that a video like that would be served to me? Sure. Lots of ways that this would not be a aha crazy moment, yet feels that way. Why? Yet feels as though I just went, oh my God. Like, I mean, I literally hit pause and went, like, you just said that to me. That was to me. This moment, this day, this video, this thought.
If you're doing it right, that should happen all the freaking time.
Yes.
If you're not being governed by your carnal self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to figure out and you're in control. And then you have this other thing that's in conflict with whatever you think you should be doing, and you're following blindly in something else. You should have those realizations where one of those two ideals is going to win. One of them is going to be better. One of them is going to be worse. And when you do it right, you're giving more power and control to your faith self rather than, what your natural self. And that juxtaposition will happen all the time because it wants to win, right? It wants to be right. And those are faith doesn't need a whole lot. Like those little winks along the way are sometimes enough to be like, there's something to this shit.
Yeah. In fact, I've heard it takes more energy to not have faith than to have it. It takes more imagination, more digging. I have a family member that is a hardcore atheist. Says God is a made-up character. The Bible isn't real. Church is just a business. It's a moneymaker, yada, yada, yada. And even brings up, still brings up very good points, very good information, factual information, very hard to argue with. Could totally see why they would feel that way. For instance, we'll bring up different writings that I don't know much about it because I didn't study it, but he would say this used to be in the Bible. It's not anymore. Why? Because it paints Jesus in his term as an evil bastard and all these things are bad and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but you said that's bad. It's not in the Bible because it's bad. Bible's not bad. And he's like, well, it's not anymore. Obviously, that doesn't follow what they're trying to push if that's in there. So they cut it out. And again, has these great points. But what do you say to people like that?
I don't. So so let's just say I give you a stock tip. I say, Apple's going to double in price today. You have two choices. Utilize the information for yourself and don't tell anybody else about it. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. You got access to information. You make use of it. There's going to be a desire that you then, because we're egotistical bastards, that we're going to want to tell somebody and want to be right about something so you can prove how much of an authority you are on the deal. So if I act on information that I get from places that were sort of like a blessing, I go use the blessing for myself. I don't have the need to prove it to somebody else and make them invest in the stock. I don't want that. This is for me. The information was for me and my self-control. I'm not going to, and you think about it this way, that everybody's on a different portion of their journey, and to bring them up at your point is never going to work. It's almost like if you've been running for 20 years and somebody started yesterday, you're going to want to tell them all the good stuff that gets them running. You even want to run with them. And when you just see that they're nowhere on the path, you have nothing in common with the person, they're not going to add anything to your journey, and you're just going to waste time telling people things that are going to deprive you of the time that you could be exercising that blessing and gift for yourself. So if you want to feed your sort of like yourself and self-realization, do it in those moments where make it a personal thing. Know that everybody's getting spoken to in different ways. Everybody's at a different point on their journey, and having similarities or foundations with other people isn't necessary. I think spirituality is a very personal thing that should not be shared with other people. unless you're proselytizing. And some people actually have the gift of that. Let them go do that. If your gift is to self-govern and make yourself into a better person, it involves no other people. Okay? So ignore them.
How do you know if you have that gift?
Oh, you'll know. You'll know. In your pursuit of faith, you get pushed where you're supposed to be. Because remember, when you're going on the faith, you're not doing all the things you want to do. You're getting pushed in territories that you can't even see. What happens is you get pushed into the territories that you should be in rather than you are in.
Oh God, I feel like that's happening to me currently too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's another epiphany I had the other day, and it's a long story, so I won't get into details. But lately there's been this sort of direction that I'm getting sort of led to, and I've even been like, I'm not into that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that. I'm not whatever. But you guys need help. I'll help. And now I'm seeing how it ties into something that was told to me like last year. Hey, you should be doing this. Well, that could be a good idea. And now I'm seeing how this thing I'm getting pushed into is a baby step in that direction. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God,
but don't okay. Out? So it's undeniable. So don't like think your rational self is going to make that decision. When you're on the supernatural level, you just have to put all your energy and keep developing the faith part of it, and let the faith part and let you end up wherever you're supposed to be, rather than every once in a while you grabbing the wheel and saying, well, no, I don't agree with it, or maybe it's not true, or somebody else doesn't agree with me. Like, if it's true, it's going to happen anyway, regardless of what I do. Yeah. So I'm going to be an observer to it. I'm going to still be conscious about it, but I'm going to let it happen. If it keeps, putting itself in my face, I'm not going to deny it, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah. So how do you feel if you are someone then who is a follower of Christianity and the Bible and things of that nature? Aren't we supposed to actively go out and share and tell? And
if that's your thing.
So you're saying not every.
Not every.
Don't they say it is everybody's thing?
Yeah. And that's there's a lot of human interpretations. Things that were good for spreading the church meant that everybody had to have the same spiritual gift. I don't think that's the case at all. I think when you're connected, remember, this is information. So you're reading a booklet that were transcribed from people's experiences, mm-hmm. right? How do you know that it wasn't directed at someone who are not you? Or would you get hung up that if the preacher was saying something and the messaging wasn't for you, you were not going to say there, well, what about me, right? Mm-hmm. What if that message was for the dude sitting next to you, and you got to be patient until your message comes down?
Yeah.
So what they tell you to do and what the rules are, like, there are only a couple of base principles, and I believe in those. And a lot of it's like information. I'm going to contemplate it, but some of those aren't me.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll sit in church and they'll be talking about something and I'll be like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed to hear today.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's not. It's still interesting. Sometimes it'll be something that like my husband's been going through, and I'll give him one of like these.
Yeah.
And he'll just go,
yeah,
I know. And I'm just like,
and I can't say that I have it figured out. I think that I am on spiritually, like when I was a kid and I went to church all the time and I participated, I wasn't as spiritually connected as I am now. I feel like I've got a lot figured out for me, and letting go and not getting hung up on things like of the critics of religion. Like it's one thing to not follow religion, but to be critical of something somebody else believes in. I never could make sense of that. Like, why? And, why would you want to get in the way of somebody else's belief? Are you trying to protect them? Or are you trying to make them feel stupid?
Yeah. Or some people, because I think some people believe that if you don't believe this one thing, you're wrong, and that could affect your eternity.
Yeah.
Like, they're so afraid that you've got to get this right, or you're not going to go to heaven, or you're not going to whatever. I had somebody say to me one time, and it was somebody that was truly sort of a mentor and got me involved in church and kind of brought me back to this whole mindset. And they had said, yeah, we have these really great friends of ours, and they're such nice people, and they're very giving, and they're helpful, and they're active in their church, but they're Muslim. And it's just such a shame that they're not going to go to heaven when they die. And I said, what? Why? And I said, you just said they're wonderful, giving, loving people. They help everyone. They give to their community. And they're like, but they don't accept Jesus as their savior. And so, no, they don't get to come. And I'm just like, And I think that's why people will sometimes push so hard against other beliefs, is they feel, I'm saving you. You're doing a disservice to yourself. You don't understand what danger you're in if you don't follow what I follow.
So here's the deal. And I want to split the into two groups of people. And this applies to science, religion, pretty much everything. You have the people who are really good at collecting information. Mm-hmm. They have a skill set of being able to see information, document it accurately. They're not interpreters of that information. Then you have the interpreters. They take the information that somebody else collected and they try to add rationale and make sense of it. Who do you think should be more accurate? The data collectors or the interpreters?
Who should be more accurate?
Yes.
You'd probably want to collect accurate information.
Okay, so the collectors need to be deadly accurate. The interpreters are suggestions. So if you had a dream that you were falling off a cliff, right? The data would be, I had a dream and I was falling off a cliff. It was this time of day. These were the details. This was the details. And then someone else comes along, picks up your information, adds as much understanding as what they have. And they're like, I think it means X, Y, Z. Well, the information that comes from the interpreter, you know that they're taking just as good as a guess as you are. Some of them are really good at it and they have science backing and they have lots of experiences and, they have their stuff put together. And that person, you would take more from their opinion about what that means than someone you would take the person that skews the data. You would never trust to collect data from you, right? Because they have a intention. You never want these people to be the same people. So the Muslims don't go to heaven, right? I'm going to say, according to who, right? And if the information person, they don't care one way or another what you do with that information. They're going to give you scripture about saying blah, blah, blah. The scripture says blah, blah, blah. Cool. It says that. Now let's let it get interpreted by someone. Now the interpreter is going to tell, well, that means X, right? And now if you trust the authority that's going to say, oh yeah, all Muslims, okay, prove it. Give me the proof of it. Now you can take that and say how you want to feel about the data that was given to you and interpretation of someone that you trust. Is it, and we used to do that. My preacher and I would sit down and I would push against things that were in the Bible. And this is what I was super interested in, how much of it that you believe that is interpreted and why I don't feel the same way. Well, our messaging different, but it's the same piece of information that I'm combing through and you're combing through. Who's right and wrong? Doesn't freaking matter. The information was delivered to me in the way that I needed to hear it. And it was delivered to you the way that you wanted to hear it. And our conflict, I'm not going to change your mind and you're not going to change my mind because both were spoken to in what we needed to hear for the moment that we're in. What if I needed to hear it my way for a little while and then 2 years from now, it leads to me making a decision that was, I needed to hear that information to get to. I'm going to get a wink down the road and my life might be changed 3 years from now based on what I needed to hear today. So trying to convince me that I'm wrong might deprive me of that moment 3 years from now. Why would you want to do that to me?
Yeah, like for example, there are religions that are firm believers in that women should not speak in church. There are no women pastors. You sit quietly, you don't talk. Like the idea of a woman preaching is big no. And when I learned that, I'm like, that's insane. Like women brought me to church. I wouldn't be involved in church if it weren't for these women. And some of the best sermons I've heard were from women. And they're very influential and motivating. And that just can't be true. And one of my pastors at our church, it's a husband and wife. They both preach. And she's like, there's a lot of scripture that you could read and say, oh, that clearly states a woman shouldn't speak in church, but it's that
is your human nature that you want to everything to reach homeostasis, where we have consensus and agreement on everything. And we are at our worst when we think every church has to be the same.
Yeah.
What if that church that only puts men in something, it's necessary for the mission of that church? And then there's another one that does a completely different thing. Should we say, we got to be all on the same page and all do the same thing? It doesn't work anywhere else in human beings' experience where everything is the same.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've told this family member before, I'm like, if you want to debate that religion is not a good thing, I won't disagree with you all the time. I totally get that point. I don't so much follow certain religious rules, laws, sayings, things of that nature. And this is me personally, and some people probably think this is wrong. I started because of my experience, what I felt, what I couldn't explain, what felt right to me and meaningful. And if somebody says, well, according to the church, though, you can't A, B, and C, or you should do this, that, I'd be like, well, is that a man-made rule? Is that something that your religion evolved into? It doesn't serve me, and this does.
So, okay, I want to give you the answer here. Remember what I said, that faith is a very personal experience. Mm-hmm. You gathering information, you applying it to you. What everybody else is doing doesn't freaking matter. Everybody's on their own path. So what I want you to say is, when somebody says something about the Muslim, right? Well, they're going to go to the 10 Commandments and say that there should be no other God before me, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're going to say, on your list of 10 Commandments, are you nailing all 10 right now? And if you're nailing all 10, then you can move on to what he's doing over there. But until you get them all right, and you never have it, put that energy and focus on you and not breaking those other 10. And it's end of conversation, because nobody's nailing those. They're intended to be a perpetual pursuit of self-disciplines, not the I'm breaking 5 of them, but that guy over there, that one's most important to me, because I think human nature to control other people and create slaves of other people by judging their actions is so prominent in the human condition. Faith breaks that down and says, this is a personal pursuit, not an extra
some people
pursuit.
Would argue religion does just that. Controls people.
Well, you think human beings in the control of a religious machine isn't going to do their number one tendency to control other people?
Yeah.
So build that into your filter when you're reading that information and you don't feel like using it to control other people. There's some information that doesn't control other people that you can apply to yourself and make yourself better. So let's shelve all of the people control stuff and just apply the stuff that fixes you and makes you better. Spend your whole life just doing that. Don't worry about what other people are doing, unless it's you're proselytizing. And you will find proselytizing.
Profitize?
No, proselytizing.
Proselytize?
Is that a word? Did I just invent a word?
It sounds like you're saying prostitution.
No, it's not prostitutionalizing.
Prophesying?
No.
Prophesizing?
Proselytize. I don't even know. Proselytizing.
Proselytizing.
An action of attempting to convert someone from religion, belief, or opinion to another. No amount of proselytizing is going to change their minds.
How funny how close that sounds like
prostitutionalizing.
Yeah.
Jerry says, Joe, off the subject, can you possibly exercise or use your brain so much that it can cause your brain to break, or for lack of better explanation, cause dementia or Alzheimer's without practice? Like they're almost like if you're muscle bound, like you exercise a ton, there are new rules that you have to follow to be able to compartmentalizing using too many things. So think of like most human beings are single dimensional. Like we have the thing that's an hour in front of us, and that's all we ever do. We don't think about the bounds of years from now or millennia or light years away. These other things move out the boundaries of where your brain can go. And so if you don't have constraints to, your neurons are going to follow whatever you use and exercise. And if you give it this open range, right? You go into a restaurant that has 10,000 things on the menu, you can't get anything accomplished because there's too many choices and options. When you exercise your brain, like I do, you have to compartmentalize where those you have to create sort of like your own boundaries, things that are not real, and contain those thoughts within those boundaries, or else you're just being in left field and you'll lose yourself and you will go. I think dementia is a different thing. I think dementia is where you have the breakdown of the functions of what the brain does versus having a brain that just is allowed to go 100 light years in every direction, never being able to return to things that are priorities.
So rather than like a physical issue like Alzheimer's and dementia, you'd have maybe more of a mental health issue.
It wouldn't be mental health. It would be unbridled. It would be chaotic. It would be too entropic. You wouldn't be able to use anything, because you can literally, you ever look into a new topic and you really get into the depth and you think to yourself, holy shit, like I could never know everything about this topic. And then you think there are 5,000 other topics that are just as deep as this one. I could live 900 lifetimes and never be an expert or get to the bottom of this. And now it's too overwhelming. And you're like, now you're paralyzed because you now have insight that you will never be able to get to the outer boundaries of what you just embarked on. Think about someone who does this in 1,000 different directions, and they can go on that road and never come off that road. And so everything else that needed attention and needed priority and needed energy gets completely deprived because of that one pursuit.
So wouldn't a sane person say, I see how this can become a bit infinite?
Yes.
So I'm going to shelve it. And
that's what
I'm going to be okay with knowing that I'll never know it all.
Yes. Yeah. So you can go down on that pursuit without compartmentalization. That's exactly what would happen, is either you get it's too overwhelming and I'm not going to do it. Or if you don't have that structure, you will pursue that thing forever in that direction, right? And deprive everything else in your mind. Yeah. So there's a lot of disciplines that are and practices that you have to do when you give in to those tendencies, for sure.
Have you ever felt yourself going down that way?
Oh, I could, but I started so young at the, my inner monologue and where my thoughts were allowed to go. And I penned them in from a really young age. And so I'm practiced in it,
Have you ever found yourself so ingrained in a subject matter and you get annoyed that you stop finding new information? Like, oh, I already know this already. Oh, I've already heard this. Does anyone have anything else to add? Sometimes I'll find I'll deep dive into a subject and then I see it kind of just ends there and it's like, no, I want some more of this. And everything
I would say you're following in the commentary of other people rather than you've reached the point where you in philosophy would dive into what you think happens next. So you'd be more of the author.
I kind of get done with the data collection.
So if the majority of people in that single dimension only go up to a boundary, you're going to find yourself at that boundary, and then it's up to you to jump over the boundary and keep going more. And a lot of the topics that we discuss, you can see the stoppage point for most people. And the funnest part is on the other side of that boundary. Really is fun.
Yeah.
Because you're in new territory. You don't have people that really can offer any kind of opinion because they've never been there. It's the best place. Sherry says, I don't understand send stars. Can I use PayPal? Yes, Sherry, you can. Stars is a way to send tokens to creators, and they can be converted to other things in cash or other things through Facebook. So I believe whatever Facebook is funded by, you can use to buy stars. But thank you for that question.
Thank you, Sherry.
Appreciate that.
So speaking of breaking your brain, do you know much about I'm going to say this wrong. Ayahuasca? Yeah. What is that exactly?
Chemical compound that is psychedelic in nature. It's sort of like the same kind of things like mushrooms and LSD. It opens up neurological pathways, provides chemical bath to your brain that allows you to go to different places.
I have a real hang up with things that people use like this. It, like you said, it's interesting, the phrasing. You go different places. You utilize something in your brain. You explore things and feelings and whatever you didn't really consider before. How do you know you're not just not breaking something, but adding something that is not that? To me, there's a difference between I opened a door and saw what was actually there, or there was no door, there was nothing else. I altered my state or my brain or chemicals to think there was. Do you know what I mean? How do you know that there's an authentic thing you're experiencing, or there's just I know if I have alcohol and I'm drunk, it's not my authentic state. That's not something that I am discovering that's always been there. That's I put something in my body that altered it temporarily and is causing this effect.
Right.
How do you know, like, ayahuasca, things of that nature aren't just that? Like, oh, it's false. It's, you tapped into your imagination. You created some sort of optical illusion for yourself. It's not real. Or is it?
So I'm not going to be able to give you an objective truth because I don't think there is one. But looking at it from a science standpoint, so what's pushing back on this is ego, right? Your ego wants to be in control. It wants to know, it wants to drive, it wants to always be there. You have faith in your ego to be able to rescue you from situations. It's dependable. It's always come through for you. You want it to be in control. Now, these drugs, what they do is they kill your ego. They take you out of the equation. It's no longer that person or that thing is in control of your brain. These are things that are outside of your ego, and your ego fights back against that.
But do they do that by physically changing your brain?
These are perceptions. So yes, they physically change your brain. Neurological pathways exist afterwards that weren't there before. You can develop insights that you didn't have access, new information that you didn't have access. So it is a very, very similar to a spiritual pursuit. So do you think in biblical times, when these kind of plants were eaten on a regular basis, experiences had tapped into supernatural experiences because it was part of their diet? It wasn't considered a drug. It was part of what they did. And when they ate this thing, they got access to information they wouldn't have before. So maybe parts of the Bible were written on, on these other substances.
But again, is it real? Did you actually tap into something, or did you make it up?
Your ego is using those words. Your ego is saying it's not real.
If somebody said, here's a brain scan.
Yes.
Here's what your brain is without it. Here are all the things firing and you're experiencing on it.
Right.
To me, I'd say, okay, that is more real. Rather than just like,
I don't think we're using the same. We're not using the same definition of real. What is real? Perception? You?
If you take a drug and you see a pink elephant in the room,
yes.
Was that pink elephant real?
Okay. If I put a sensor on my eyes that can see a new magnetic field that you can't see, is it real? Are we saying what you are currently capable of sensing? If I gave myself an ability,
if the magnetic field actually exists, it's real. If it doesn't exist, you're experiencing it, not real. My thing is, are you just having your own experience, or are you doing something?
So if I was the only one that could see this new magnetic field, I was the only one, and my little lenses that I invented lets me see it. Is it real? Every time I put it on.
Can we measure it another way to know it's there? Like wind. You can't see wind, but we know it's there. We know it exists. Maybe you have glasses that you see wind.
So you want it to be
real.
Well, no, none of this stuff is in the physical world. That's the point of getting can we measure God? Like if you have a meditation deal where you got to know what God was, you got to sense for what it was. And then you come back and say, I had an interaction with God. I would say, well, it's not real because you can't measure it. Mm-hmm. Right.
But like, I just had an example. What was it? If someone has a mental health issue,
yes,
maybe they hallucinate, they hear voices, they become murderous. They're not in their right mind. They believe things that are not true, and they're experiencing things that are not real. Are they tapping into another realm?
Yes. Yeah. Your brain circuitry is giving you input information, and then the interpreter is doing something with that information. Have you ever had a murderous impulse?
Like legit murderous, or like
no such thing.
Just think
no,
about
if there's an impulse of taking someone else's life, that would be a murderous impulse.
All right, no, I've never actually wanted to take anyone's life.
You have circuitry. Everybody has circuitry,
it, but no.
Everybody has circuitry to do the thing if it's possible to have done. You might have underdeveloped murderous tendencies. And then somebody else might have more murderous tendencies, less impulse control, less morals and values. And that circuitry is more defined and exercised. And so they are closer to being a murderer than you are, which you have guidelines and rules that take those impulses and do something different with them. Doesn't change the fact that we all have circuitry for doing a thing, whether or not it's close to being a revealed thing or a realized thing. That would be the only difference. So when you okay, so what you're saying is your ego is saying that normal behaviors are real and abnormal behaviors are mental health issues.
Not necessarily, but the abnormal behavior, if caused by a mental health issue.
Well, you're giving this mental health issue. It's a snapshot, a profile. It's not a condition.
If you drink alcohol and you get drunk,
yes.
Are you in a state that you are receiving factual, otherworldly information because you are now drunk?
Neurons are deadened, and I'm feeling less impulses. I have less, brain control of my decision making, and so I am left in a state that's different than I normally am, and chemically induced.
So you're saying if you take these things, same kind of thing, only the opposite direction.
Yeah,
it fires it up more.
Exactly. You're getting more information. With alcohol, you're getting less information. Both are sending you in a different perspective. Your camera is seeing and hearing and feeling different things on both sides of the spectrum.
So maybe here's an example of what I mean by real or not real. Things like optical illusions. People say all the time, we always see our nose. Our brain chooses to ignore it.
That's developed.
So if you see something while on this drug, is it actually
it's
there?
Information.
Or is it just
it's information?
Brain playing
tricks?
No
such thing. Like when you get into the quantum level, everything is just information. And it changes how you interpret it, how you make sense of it, what you can do with it is practical exercise. But it's really a good insight that if you want to make it into a physical thing, it's really hard to take something that's all information and data-based and try to make something physically useful about it. That's your ego saying, well, no, the quantum world has to adhere to the rules that I set up. If you can have two particles that are entangled over vast distances, that does not process well in my head. What do you mean? Information exchanges through things that are separated by infinite space. How could that be? It needs to conform how I feel about it rather than someone saying, oh yeah, there can be a particle that's 5,000 light years away and receives information at the same time. Your brain kind of mushes at that point, and which would you prefer? It to conform to you or you to try to get an understanding of it?
Both.
Both. You want it to, and that's where the ego, if the ego goes away, all of those rules that you're trying to force on nature to have an understanding of it go away with it. So now you're open to interpreting information that you don't know, I don't know, but you got access to it. What you do with it is kind of up to you. So the people who do this well are pursuing something specifically that they want. They need more information than they're getting, like that obstacle. You're reading someone's opinions about something. You get to a barrier where there is no more. Well, when you get there, you're like, how do I jump and get information that I don't need a human being to deliver to me, but the world of the supernatural or the chemical or, what our senses picks up that our consciousness curtails, and when the ego gets in the way.
Does it matter what you use then? Like, you hear all the time that people fried their brain because of drugs and they no longer can function. They don't think properly. Maybe they're sort of stunted in their growth, so to speak. Maybe their motor skills, like people that really have ruined their brains with drugs. Is that because of the chemical they were using? Whereas other things, maybe you can tap into different information, but not harm yourself?
So, but I don't delineate between exposure to things like violence, and you break your brain by exposing yourself to the chemicals in huge doses that then rewire your brain to tolerate violence. It's the same thing that happens when you put a different chemical that didn't come from an action that your body produced and come from the outside world. So I guess the principle is any exposure to chemicals that push what your brain's capacity of information gathering pushes you into a realm that you don't normally have access to. If you want to create serial killers, right, diminish certain things and use chemicals to neurologically incapacitate normal functions and amplify other functions. And then you're not breaking your brain, you're just changing what it's capable of doing.
So would you ever try ayahuasca?
Oh, I sure would. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you be at all like, so I've heard of some people, and the reason this has come up is I know of someone, they've been posting online about a retreat they're about to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a ayahuasca retreat. I think it's for like veterans actually, and people with different mental health issues, and it's going to help them like face stuff. And I'm like, but what if you have a bad reaction? What if it's scary? What if it's like, what if you're around a bunch of people with PTSD and you just put something in their body that makes them go insane? Like, don't you think there's like dangers to changing someone's brain or messing with it?
If you're used to doing it, then no, because you're practiced and hey, you're going to get new. Okay. So if you take a person and just take them on an island and give them a new experience, regardless of what that experience is, some people are going to learn from it, enjoy it, and make use of it, and it's going to be a good experience. You can take some people who was not lined up with new experiences. They like the status quo. They like unchanging things. They get defensive and anxious in situations, whatever. That could be dangerous for them. So the same thing here. If I were giving you the travel agent for an ayahuasca trip, right? I would say, have you pursued all of the naturally occurring chemicals that you can get just from proper nutrition and proper stimulus and all these healthy things? Have you already done that part? You've done meditation. You've already explored all of the ones that you have access to right now. If the answer is no, I've never done any of that, I would say do those first, right? If you want to take a trip to the Bahamas where there might be some tribes or whatever, I want you to go to maybe a remote town outside and start entertaining the fact that you're going to have these exposures, see how you do with it. New people, survival skills, whatever. And so your brain has to be prepared that you're going to get a stream of very confusing new information. If you're good at receiving information, being responsible about deciphering that information and how you use it, do it. If you're not that person, don't do it. So if somebody's just going there on a sort of like a drug retreat where they just want to get blasted out of their mind because they think it's going to be fun, no, I don't think it's for that at all. If you have a soldier that has PTSD and they're in really bad shape and they can't process real world information, and you're like, hey, you got this thing that's going to rewire your brain and give you a shot. Am I going to choose the torture that they're going through with how their brain is right now, with the probability that at least they're going to hit a little bit of a reset button and have a chance to process information differently? That's a worthwhile risk. So as a medical thing, I would say that's a great way of doing it. But those people who just want to do it for shits and giggles, like, I don't think it's for them.
So you think it's something that you could do once and it could rewire something forever?
Oh yeah. When people say ego death, that is a real thing. And it is probably the most valuable thing if your ego is responsible for a lot of the detriment in your life. And you kill off that ego and it goes away for a little bit and you get to see the world without ego piping in and trying to control your behaviors and whatever. And that silence, even if for a couple minutes, the rest of your natural brain that wasn't being controlled by the ego rushes in. So even if you're like a really bad person, right?
Yeah.
And your ego that was keeping things tight and disciplined, and that goes away, you have a bad experience. So I think good people are in the pursuit of more information from a place that you don't normally get to see, who have responsibilities and disciplines to take it serious. That's the person that is going to have a good experience on it. Everybody else, stay away.
How does it kill this ego? Is it just the part of your brain that has ego it quells, or?
Ego dies when you humiliate it that it didn't really have, like your parents, right? When you were a kid, your parents freaking knew everything, right? And so you deferred to them because you trusted that they knew everything. Then you start getting a little bit older and you make the suggestion that maybe they didn't know quite as much as you thought they knew. A part of your relationship with your parents like dies a little bit when you're not going to take like ask your dad about quantum computers, right? He didn't know about XYZ, but you almost had blind faith because your parents were in an authoritarian position. It's the only voice that you heard. You had no other competing thoughts for it. But then once you get to an adult, you can start contemplating things on your own. You might take their advice on certain things, but as their authority over you goes down, you're free to do your own thinking. And then you can use your own rationale to be able to put together what you believe in and your principles. So ego dying means you're minimizing it through just sheer like, you didn't know about that, did you? You didn't know about that pink elephant and the structure of time space and quantum physics and whatever. And it's like, okay, fine, I'm not needed here. And you get to silence that little voice in your head that is used to sitting in the driver's seat.
So would you say there could be two very different experiences from someone who's like, you know what? No real trauma, fairly healthy, just curious. Let's try it. Versus someone that's like, I have a lot of trauma and a lot of stuff going on up here.
It would be more dangerous.
That's kind of why I was like, a veterans thing is doing this?
But the alternative is they're coping with brokenness in their brain already.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
so
think that's kind of
there's a higher upside than somebody who's functioning on a good level. They got their shit together. They're taking a larger risk because, if they're not pursuing the information that's on the other part of that gate, and all they do is risk the chemical makeup and the neurological makeup of their brain, that's a higher risk potential.
So if I were like healthy person, no real trauma I'm dealing with, doing it out of sheer curiosity, that could be more dangerous.
I would take the easier experiences first and get really practiced at processing that in new information before I ever delved into that.
So like maybe dabble in the lesser psychedelics before you go.
Well, the natural psychedelics, like meditation, like healthy eating, like proper breathing, cold plunges, things that you can do without really a big risk. Let your brain get used to chemicals and information that's not used to getting and see how you handle it.
How do you feel about kava? Do you know much about kava? I don't either, but I saw a kava stand at the Canfield Fair. And it was like, I don't know what they were mixing it with. Coffee maybe, or juice drinks or something. And kava is some sort of root that has these different properties that can affect your mood, make you either chill out or give you a more elevated mood. It even said like, drink this one for joy, drink this one to feel chill, drink this one. And I'm like, I don't know if something that legitimately alters your state of mind will be sold to anybody at the Canfield Fair. So I have my doubts. But I've also seen people say, oh yeah, I drink kava and I get this kind of giggly high. And I'm just like, very interested. I'm fascinated, I've noticed, with things that supposedly alter your mind. And
what's our fascination with altered states of mind, though?
I don't know. Well, I think it's a couple different things. For me, the fascination started with the desire to find something other than alcohol that can make you feel some kind of way. Like, I feel like people will drink because it's fun. They do. Mm-hmm. You feel almost, you get this rush of dopamine. It makes you very social. Things are more pleasant. And then you can take it too far and it goes downhill. But that initial, whatever. Because as you get older, it almost feels easier for that to go downhill and feel shitty. I'm like, oh, are there other things? Are there these other things you can take that don't have that effect? So one, it's from a recreational standpoint, but then two, it's from this idea of like, what are you actually doing? Why are you experiencing these things? Is it something that can be beneficial or dangerous? Is it like altering your brain physically? Are you getting information that's useful, or are you just sort of living in this dreamlike fantasy and it doesn't actually make sense? Like, I don't know. My brain just kind of then spirals into all kinds of different curiosities.
Yeah, I'm probably going to say none of that stuff is for you. You should probably not
keep my feet on the ground.
Yeah, I think you should.
I also have a real strong, what's the word? Skepticism, I think, with things. Like, I've always said, I don't believe I can be hypnotized. Now, I'm not talking about slowly over time brainwashing people into things. That's different. But when you see these people that like just come up and are hypnotized, I don't think I can let go of my inner dialogue, ego,
yeah. Your ego is really defined.
It could be like this. It's to me, it's like self-consciousness. Like, if I were to take anything, I would be like, am I high yet? Is this high? Is anything changing yet? Am I hypnotized? Am I whatever? Like, I almost can't shut that off. So I'm like fascinated with people who can or do, like,
and if that's really the only thing I think you would benefit is that showing what Kelin is like without the ego being in such control, that I'd put you on an ayahuasca trip, a very contained one, just long enough for you to see what it's like with that person, not in your ear, not in your brain, not as a controlling force, and see what Kelin would be like without ego. But I wouldn't take all the downsides on your end, because remember this, when you get access to information, how are you most likely to utilize it? I use it in intellectual pursuits. I like to know and have a better understanding of things. You're very social, so you're going to use it to magnify the social parts of things, and I do not recommend the social side at all.
Really?
Oh, do not.
Why not?
The fabrication of what social is that your brain has constructed is as paper thin as it gets. When you start delving into relationships and what they really are, information that's below them, you're going to need the artificial foundation that your ego has created for you.
Like, I can't handle the truth?
For sure. You cannot handle the truth.
Now I'm even more intrigued.
Don't suggest it. It's not on my recommendation list for you.
My other fear. Yeah. I have dabbled when it became legal, like different forms of THC, and I was very unimpressed. That was one of those, like, is something happening yet? Is it like when you have alcohol and you become intoxicated, you know it, you feel it, it's clear. I've not done it much, so I guess I can't truly know. In fact, the only time I've ever had any amounts, I had also had alcohol. So I guess I've got to separate the two to really get a good reading. But I've been like, I don't feel it. I don't get it. And so part of me is like, what if something as extreme as ayahuasca I took and I just wait for this experience and I'm like, when's it happen? I got nothing. You don't think that would be the case?
No, not the case at all. Not the case at all. You would know it.
Yeah.
You would know it. It's life-changing. Like if you take some of the big innovators in California during the 60s and 70s, most of them like curated all of those ideas through LSD at the time, because that was the most chemically available psychoactives that were available, and everybody was trialing that stuff out at the time. And so like if you have like Steve Jobs, who was an LSD fiend, and he was dreaming up what Apple would become, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, if you have a tendency for creation and this stuff amplifies information that allows you to barrel into something that your ego would talk you out of, and that's the way to get beyond an obstacle that your ego would set in front of you, then in some cases it would be a tool of the brilliant. And if you went to the other side where you're not pursuing it for, entertainment means and whatever, and it devalues everything that at one point you had sacred, because now you looked in a superficial thing became now not the allure that it once had, it might ruin everything that you valued there. So it has just like everything else in the world, it has huge upsides and huge downsides depending on the person that is doing it.
Well, and we use other legal substances too. Like I know people that claim Adderall has them functioning on a whole different level, and they can focus and they can do things. And even like creatine, the supplement creatine supposedly makes you more alert and think more clearly. And
are you going to work for the pharmaceutical companies? Because it sounds like that
no,
that you're like natural occurring chemicals
right.
aren't good enough.
My point is,
yes.
How do you know what's natural and safe? Because I don't think anyone would be like, you know, you don't hear, I know they're pharmaceutical companies, so I'm sure there are downsides, but like if you were to say LSD, I'd be like, oh my God, you're going to fry your brain. You're going to die. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to whatever. It's dangerous. Someone's like, oh, Adderall. I was like, oh, totally safe. FDA approved. No risks. When really, do you think it's just that we have a social association with different things based on how they were sort of marketed?
If you travel through the course of our civilization, we change more than it changes. So for instance, like our body, just about everything that you can get from pharmaceuticals, we have a chemistry lab in our body that can produce them in small quantities, and they do certain things, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's just say we overstimulate ourselves in a portion like dopamine, like all of those feel-good drugs, and we just overdo it. Well, what it does is it gets us addicted to things. Now, experiences that if you had no stimulus on the outside, you ran a boring life where there were no loud noises, no flashy lights, the chemicals that your body can naturally produce, you would pay attention to, and it can unlock parts of your brain just because of the difference between what do you experience when you're listening to crickets, and now you get a dopamine based on seeing a meteor fly through the air, right? You could get this burst of chemicals that you're not used to, and you could have a session, right? And your body produced everything that you needed. But then you're like, oh, that was pretty cool. So I'm going to do that and that and that and that, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to, you know, they get dopamine everywhere. Now those little bursts that your body is used to being able to produce, now you don't get the same stimulation on it. And now think of the pathways that are overstimulated on a regular basis and how they've changed from an earlier version of what humans used to, you know, kind of get off on, right? So we've amped it up. So it's no doubt that we have neurological disorders that we give names to, where we've created like ADHD. Well, where does ADHD come from? Is it a function where this is what the body does when it's overstimulated in every minute of every day, right? Do we get ADHD and we got to counter it with some pharmaceutical that does it? Or if I took a person that said they had ADHD, took them to that nice boring place where all they were doing was listening to crickets, give them enough time for their brain to recalibrate, did we just fix ADHD? So is it an environmental shift that we got to hit where we don't make focus and attention be something that's hard to accomplish because of all of the competing stimulus that we get from everyday life? So.
My daughter just showed me a video yesterday that she found online, and it was this guy talking about addiction. And he thinks addiction is not exactly what we think. And he's talking about this study of rats where these rats were given regular water and water filled with like cocaine or some drug. And they kept going to the drug water. They wanted it, like they were addicted to it. They took the same rats and put them in a social environment with obstacle courses and little rat playgrounds and other friends. And in that environment, they chose water every time. They didn't want the drugs. And it's like, they don't want the drugs. They need something else. They're filling it with this void of something else. And if they have social environments and things to focus on and things to do and other habits, that fills them more than the drugs did. And it's like this whole idea of looking at addiction, whereas it may not just be some sort of physical reaction to something, but there could be a whole lot more involved in that and why somebody would do something. And so, yeah, maybe somebody that's like, oh, I have this problem focusing. Well, of course you do. Look at like this room. Look at everything around us.
Yes.
The lights, the cameras, the moving parts, the electricity, the fan, the everything. Would we feel differently sitting here than we would on a lake somewhere in a boat with nothing?
Well, in our village, when we remove all the competing deal, don't you think everybody in our village that they don't have electronics and they wake up in the morning and they tend the fields and get the eggs and they work hard all day and they get to the point where it's time to eat and then they might play a board game with one another at the end of the day and they go to bed? Do you think any of those people are going to have attention deficit disorder when you remove all the stimulus that's overwhelming the brain? It will be a different society. Like it'll be so much different than the outside world neurologically.
You know what stands out to me? I'll be quick. Have you watched The Chosen yet? The show The Chosen.
I've watched some of it. Yeah.
So this shows maybe what a fat kid I am. I keep getting focused on how little they eat every day. You know, every meal, every snack, every whatever. They survive on very little food. But that's their norm. Like their feast is like a piece of bread and a piece of fruit and maybe something to drink. Like that's good eating for them. And I'm just like, look how we've evolved into, I'm always thinking about what I'm going to eat again.
Mm-hmm.
And the meals are much bigger and closer together and all the time. And they might not even eat all day, every day, maybe once a day. And that's a norm. And it's like, look at what we condition ourselves to that is unnecessary. And it's not even, it's we put it on ourselves.
Do you think you could do that?
Eat that little?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, could I survive? Yes. Do I want to? No.
Why?
I just.
Well, here's how you can eat very little, right?
Uh-huh.
It's an efficiency rate. So if you, let's just say you had a piece of food in front of you, right? And we'll just use chicken. And I did the chemical composition of that chicken. What is it made up of? What's in this that when you eat it, you can utilize, and you know that your body, when you consume it, what your body makes use of. If I was able to put like a little meter and say, of that chicken, you use 15% of that protein that was passing through your body, whether it's what's in your gut and your stomach, the acids, what your makeup or what you ate before, what you did after it, and whatever. And if I said, okay, well, let's just eat chicken, but instead of 15% your body made use of, let's see if we can get it to 50%. And before we just start giving it loads of more volume of food, let's try to make better use of the food that you're already giving. What if you can get to 90% of that chicken? And then so you got the vitamins that you needed out of it, you get the protein needed out of it. Your body is using 90. Now we get in a room, and I've been doing this for a year. And my body, when I eat a piece of chicken, I'm getting 90% use of everything that's needed. You're just expelling 85% of it in waste, right? How many more pieces of chicken do you have to eat to catch up to me? Well, you got to eat like 6 pieces of chicken to get the same nutritional value that I got out of one. So if you can just nurture your body to make better use of the things you're eating, you don't have to eat a whole lot. So I imagine at that period of time, they weren't putting chemicals in their body. They weren't destroying it with the destructive things we do.
They were getting exercise and controlling glucose spikes.
So when it got anything in its body, the body was like, oh, I don't get this very often. I got to make better use of it. They were probably getting better nutritional value from the very little that they absolutely ate because they picked it off of a bush and slaughtered it themselves and, you know, and made, So that would be, it's almost like when, you know, when the Native Americans would kill off a buffalo, right? And they made use of almost 100% of every kill. And then you had the colonizers that would eat some meat, but they'd leave piles of stuff that they didn't use. We got to kill a whole lot more buffalo because you're not efficiently using the buffalo that you have. That's sort of the analogy. Not a perfect analogy, but you get the drift.
We're out of time, unfortunately.
All right. We'll be back tomorrow.
All good things must come to an end.
Yeah, that was a fun one. So have a good one, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content.